Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Mike Catron. Tyler, I fucked that up. It's been a while since I fucked that up. I'm just going to go again.
Dude, I thought maybe you were pulling the Mark Roberts, like you got to fuck up 3 times before you start it.
I haven't fucked up. I haven't fucked up that intro in a very long time.
That's because you got it written down now. You're just reading it.
No way, man. That's just ingrained in my memory. When I do it when I've done the podcast by myself, it's actually for some reason harder for me to remember it than when I'm doing it when I know you're listening. I don't know why. I don't know why that works in my head like that. But all right, I'll start over. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com, your home for the very best fantasy basketball tools and articles on the entire internet. Go check them out. Why haven't you checked them out already? We've been plugging them for a very, very long time. They have always been putting out an incredibly excellent product with tons of free tools. #basketball.com. I am your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Another great day and another great fantasy week upcoming, Michael.
It is. We're getting there, right? We're sneaking up to the trade deadline in a lot of leagues. The NBA trade deadline is also sneaking up on us as well. A lot of people might still think the trade deadline is after the All-Star break, and it is not. It is before the All-Star break, everybody. So this next week or so could be very, very interesting with teams trying to maneuver their way into playoff contention, and that's probably what you should be doing too as a fantasy basketball manager as well.
Yeah, and I mean the next 2 weeks are going to be huge in the sense that the trade deadline's on the 7th, so that's when it gets to be Thursday, right? It's only 1 week away, and then we're going to see some shifts in value there. Then the buyout market really picks up right after that, right? For the next 3, 4, 5 days, we see a lot of the guys who are going to get bought out, and after that, it's pretty much smooth sailing, save for the injuries that happen late in the season. So now's really the important time to make that push over the next 2 weeks and really solidify your roster, whether it's through pickups of guys who are gaining value because of trades or you making trades yourself. The next 2 weeks can be very important.
Yeah, this really could make or break your way, whether you either get into the finals or get into even just the playoffs, or once you get into the playoffs, you make your way into the finals. So you really got to pay attention on Twitter. We are going to try to bring you quicker updates if there are any crazy trades that happen on the podcast as well. But if you want to get even quicker feedback, go check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes and subscribe. You get access to exclusive content. You get podcasts earlier than the general public. And during this trade season, you might be getting some advice on who to pick up and what are the effects of certain trades quicker than our regular listeners, who will get it when we get the podcast out, but our Patreon subscribers will get it early. Patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. If you want that exclusive content, subscribe. We really appreciate all our subscribers out there. Tyler, I got a question for you. What do you think about this? The tables have turned.
Oh, Michael, I guess I'm ready for it.
But this is related to what we're talking about. When do you prefer to have, in a, let's just say a redraft league, when do you prefer to set the trade deadline?
So I don't really like to have the trade deadline before the actual NBA trade deadline. And the whole reason for that is I just think that kind of hamstrings some owners because you don't really have any say in who gets traded, right? And value can swing a lot from trades. So I just don't really like to have the trade deadline before that because you might get screwed with somebody on your roster that you don't really want. And then like your only recourse then is to drop somebody and pick somebody else up. And that might not be the best thing for winning your fantasy championship. So, and they moved the trade deadline up a little bit, which is nice. So for me, like the ideal time would probably be like about a week after the trade deadline, maybe even 2 weeks. You got to have it before your playoffs start. So depending on how early you want to start your playoffs, that matters too.
Yeah, I feel like people start their playoffs a little too early. I know they're trying to avoid those last few weeks, but I really think you only have to avoid like the last 2 weeks at most. I don't think you really need to avoid too many more games than that. People are still being competitive, and everybody has to play on the same playing field up until that point. So, I like to start my playoffs as late as possible, and I agree. The trade deadline should be after the real NBA trade deadline at some point, whether it's the day or a week, but before your playoffs.
Yeah, like one of my leagues has it on the 30th, and I just think that's way too soon. Like, and the bad part about this league is it's a league where there's no waiver wire either. So if a trade goes down between the 30th and the 7th, you can really kind of get screwed there and have no recourse on how to fix it.
Now, if you trust everyone in a redraft league, why do you even need a trade deadline?
Well, I mean, I guess once the playoffs start, you shouldn't be allowing trading, especially in a redraft league, just because that's only asking for shadiness to happen, right?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, the reason there's a trade deadline is to stop super shady nonsense going on.
But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. And in some dynasty leagues, like most of my ones that I play in, like it stops when the playoffs start. Like there's no real trade deadline. It's just whenever the playoffs start, there's no trading until the playoffs are over. And then trading's right back up as soon as the finals matchup ends.
Yeah. And then trades are right back open to literally anybody. That's a lot of the keeper leagues I play in, or dynasty leagues are pretty much there's a break and then it's open season once again.
Yeah, and I think that's how it should be. You know what I mean? Like you should let teams trade right up until the playoffs start in those kind of leagues, in my opinion, right? Like the trading should be open basically all but 3 or 4 weeks of the year.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, like that makes your league interesting. And I encourage literally anything to make a league more interesting, because when people are engaged, your league's going to be more fun. And that's why I tell people, shallower leagues, especially when you're starting out, encourage trades, have a good waiver wire. Shallower leagues are probably a better place to start before you get into wondering if Maxi Kleber is going to be playing. Even Maxi Kleber in bigger leagues is like a must own. It's pretty weird.
Dude, are you hating on Maxi Kleber?
You heard what I said. I think I actually just picked him up in one of my not even that deep leagues.
So a lot of people who cover the Mavericks like to say he's one of the most underrated players in the NBA.
That sounds like a Mavericks mantra. Don't they always have like a Brandon Wright, like just somebody on their team where it's like, man, that guy's so underrated? And it's like, no, that guy's probably properly rated. He's not.
Well, here's the thing I'll say about Maxi, and you don't really get the full scope of this unless you watch a lot of Mavericks games, is he's actually really good at protecting the rim for a relatively short guy. Like he's probably only like 6'9", 6'10", and the dude blocks shots like crazy. And he's one of those guys who is never afraid to like challenge you at the rim, which also lets him get posterized from time to time, obviously. But like if you go up and try to take it strong to the rim, he's going to try to meet you at the summit and block your shot. And I'm a big fan of that, right? Because that takes some stones. Yeah,
I feel like good teams have, like, anytime I've ever really like thought the Bulls were good, there's always a guy on the bench that like the rest of the league legitimately has never heard of, but then like he's coming in and playing significant. Like you could tell he's being effective while he's on the court, just like they pass the eye test. I feel like Maxi Kleber for Dallas is like he passes the eye test when he comes in. He's like not making too many mistakes. He's usually in the right spot. He usually does something that helps impact the game. at least to a certain level. And like that's exactly what you want coming off your bench if you're a good team.
Yeah, and I think all those guys get underrated, and then the inverse sometimes happens with them, right? They're underrated for so long that they get overrated because someone's finally catches on, and then they get a starting role somewhere and they get paid a lot of money, and things often flame out.
Yeah, it turns out they weren't that good. It's like, yeah, their role was to come in and play against second squads. But we're gonna see guys like that come out on these bad teams end up playing starters minutes down the stretch though. So some of those guys are worth watching.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, we talk about this every year, and I guarantee we'll be talking about it in a couple of weeks. Like there'll be a time where someone goes down with an injury, especially on those bad teams that only have like one superstar, and some random bench player who plays 20 minutes a game right now will be playing 35 minutes and be useful for fantasy because he's getting a lot of rebounds or he's getting a few assists. And, those things matter.
They certainly do. But we're going into week 16 here. Like I said, the season, especially you head-to-head teams, you hardcore roto players out there, shout out to you. You still got a long way to go. But you head-to-head guys, like it's coming down to the last stretch here before the playoffs, and we got another really weird week. I feel like the year started out where all the weeks were pretty normal, pretty straightforward. There were a lot of games were avoiding certain football days, like there wouldn't be a lot of games on Saturday and Sunday and stuff like that. But now that we're here in the dead of winter and everybody's freezing to death and the depths of the snow are coming to take your children away, it's getting weird. It's getting really weird. And this week is no exception. There are 12 games on Saturday. 12. So like basically almost the entire league is playing on Saturday, but only 3 people are playing on Sunday. The rest of the week is kind of a mix of like 5, 6, 7 games.
Well, Sunday's the last football day, right? I mean, the Super Bowl is on Sunday, so that's why there's only 3 games. And I believe the 3 games are a little bit earlier in the day. Don't quote me on that. They've done that the last couple of years with the Super Bowl, basically to let the Super Bowl shine, and they know everyone's going to watch the Super Bowl anyways for the most part, because even people I know that hate football usually watch the Super Bowl, if not for the commercials, just because everybody else they know is watching it.
Yeah, like it's simply a national event. It's one of the few that are even left now that everybody has their own niche TV that they can watch. If you want to watch only crime dramas from Eastern Europe, like you could do that for the rest of the year. Like everyone could watch whatever little piece of genre that they want. But the Super Bowl is still like a public event. Like even I watch the Super Bowl probably every year. I probably don't watch too much of it. But I'm not a big football fan, but I end up getting invited to some Super Bowl party. And it's like, hey, it's an excuse to like get drunk and hang out with your friends and eat. Someone's always going to make like nacho cheese dip. And it's like, who doesn't want to eat nacho cheese dip? It's great. It's the best.
Well, and that's another reason you got to love the Super Bowl, right? It's a good time to pig out and hang out. And so, yes, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, the 3 games go on Sunday. So
I'm excited. Yeah. I'm gonna have people over for the basketball games.
Hey, that Thunder Celtics game at 2 o'clock on ABC.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting game. Now, that 1 o'clock game, man, don't invite them over for that. Memphis against New York. I mean, that's not
No, that doesn't sound very good. But yeah, have an early Super Bowl. That way, by the time the Super Bowl rolls around, everybody's good and like real hammered. And then you can start bringing out all the other food and stuff like that. Make them come over and help you cook.
It's dude. I will say this about the Super Bowl: it's like the only time of the year I eat bologna. Is that weird?
Bologna.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's weird. Who's got bologna at their Super Bowl party? That's kind of a weird. It's a weird item.
I don't know, man. A lot of people around me eat bologna like all the time because like hunting is big here, and so like the only, especially deer hunting. Yeah. So the only good way to eat a deer is if you make like venison bologna.
Oh, well, I was gonna say that's a little bit different because like that's actually real. It's still processed, but it's like fresher food. I'm thinking of like fucking like Lunchables bologna.
No.
That's what I was thinking.
No,
I'm bringing that to the party.
I'm talking about like real legitimate like pretty fresh meat bologna.
I would happily eat some venison bologna. That sounds delicious.
Yes, but it's like
do you fry it? Have you ever fried the bologna up?
I have not.
You should try it. Fried bologna is pretty good.
But yeah, so that's like the only time of the year I eat that. So that's kind of my weird Super Bowl thing.
That is a little strange. But it sounds pretty good. I'm interested in eating some. I need to get some more I got some hunting friends down south, but they always make me deer jerky. It keeps longer. That's nice, and it's very good. But I've not seen the deer bologna.
Oh, deer bologna, very good, underrated food.
There you go. A little extra tidbit for our listeners out there. But let's get into Week 16. The Portland Trail Blazers are only playing one single game this week. This is the second. Isn't this like the second or third week in a row where there's just been a team that plays like one game? And I know there was one London game. That makes a lot of sense. But lately there's been some games where teams are just playing one game a week. That makes, like, in my head, that makes zero sense at this time of the year. And then we have, 5 teams playing 2 games this week. So a really, really weird week.
Yeah, and there's just less games this week, right? Like we saw last week, there was 3 days with double-digit games, and you mentioned it, Saturday's the only one this week. So there's just going to be less games. So yeah, starting any Blazer, I would say, is pretty much nearly impossible. And if you read my article this week, I made the case with Damian Lillard. Like, even if Damian Lillard has a great game where he drops 40 points and 12 assists, like, you need a 4-game player who averages 11 points and 3.2 assists per game, and you get more production from the 4-game player. So that's not really that good of a player, is it, Mike? Like, there's plenty of those guys probably available on your waiver wire averaging 11 points and 3.2 assists. So
yeah, I think if you're sitting in a 12-team league, there's quite a few 11-3 guys out there. So it's like, yeah, Dave could get real hot, probably even drop maybe 55. But you're probably better off looking for someone who's playing 4 games this week.
Right, and then even when we look at those guys with 2 games, right, the Cavs, the Timberwolves, the Suns, the Kings, the Raptors, like, maybe you're starting Karl Anthony Towns, maybe Devin Booker, maybe Kawhi Leonard. But other than that, like, it's going to be difficult to start those guys too. So I'm always looking for 4-game guys to maximize my roster. And this week, I will say that we got a better crop than we do some other weeks. Like, some weeks, it's the 7, 8, 9 guys are a little hard to find. This week, we got some decent players. The last 2 are a little bit questionable, but the other 8 are pretty strong names to add.
I'm looking at this list, and it's a lot of players that I like, a lot of players that I've picked up before in the past, and it's good to see a familiar name on there, Justin Holiday, who's been playing a lot more minutes on the Memphis since kind of like, half that team is injured at this point. He was having an incredibly good year playing in all the garbage blowout time for the Chicago Bulls until they what they moving for, cash considerations. So it's hard to keep up with how many cash consideration trades the Bulls end up doing this year.
Well, it might as well have been cash considerations. I mean, it was basically the same thing.
It's pretty close. I think we got a draft pick out of it, but Justin Holiday back into playing close to starters minutes, and he is a really good steals candidate. I'm not sure he's going to be playing at the level he used to play, but I still think if he's playing like 35, 36 minutes, he's been starting, he's going to give you, somewhat close to what he was producing earlier this year.
Yeah, and this Grizzlies team plays a little bit slower, so you gotta factor that in. But I mean, he's going to
slower than the Bulls. That's impressive.
He's going to give you steals, threes, rebounds that are all good. He's going to score some decent points too, like not great, but he's probably going to give you double digits, which that helps. And so, yeah, Justin Holiday be a great ad this week.
He's a good wing. Marcus Smart is still like criminally underrated. He's getting tons of steals, and even in below starters minutes, he's still worth an ad, I think. And the fact that he's only owned in 38% of leagues is pretty shocking.
Well, and we talked about this last week, right? Like, some of his contributions are just very underrated. And by that, I mean, like, the big. They're not big numbers, right? So people are like, oh, well, he's doing that little bit and that little bit and that little bit. But those little bits matter a lot, right? Like his 4 rebounds is a positive value, right? Like Paul George is averaging, or his 4 assists, I mean, is positive value. Paul George also averaging 4 assists. If you look at the valuation on Basketball Monster, it's a plus 0.33. So it's not like game changer or anything, but that's a positive category, right? His 1.7 steals are obviously a very big plus. That has a positive value of 1.54, which is very good. And then he's helping you in some other ways too, right? Like his 0.4 blocks are not really that much of a negative. And that matters from a guard. Like for a guard, those are very, very good. He's still getting you 3 rebounds. He's getting you a 3-pointer and a half, which is basically right around the even value there too. So he's helping you in a lot of ways that don't seem like he's helping you.
Yeah, and over time that adds up. He's not going to have any he might have the occasional flashy line, right? But most of his lines are going to be like, oh boy. But then you kind of take a better look at it. You're like, oh, well, like, 3 steals. Cool. Oh, for some reason he got a block. That's great. Cool. And then over the course of, a week, that certainly matters.
Yeah, and to get it from a guard, like half a block a game from a guard is just special, and most people don't see it that way. But how many guards are averaging like a block a game? There's not really very many.
No, that's a rare feat. That's usually reserved for people like Dwayne Wade, who was a very good blocking guard back in the day.
So you want to play the game today, Michael?
Let's do it. I'm interested.
How many guards this season? And I think this is pretty much everybody. This is on Basketball Monster. How many guards are averaging over a block a game? Guard eligible according to Basketball Monster. According to Basketball Monster.
Over a half a block a game, is you're saying?
No, I'm saying averaging a full block.
A full block a game. That's really, that's pretty tough. Well, is Giannis a guard? Are we counting him as a guard?
Not according to this.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say there's 3 guys.
There are 0.
What? 0?
Kent Bazemore and John Wall are averaging 0.9.
Okay, both of them have been are very injured.
Yes, but that's it. Those are the top 2. Okay. So do you want to guess how many are averaging more than a half a block?
Okay, well, I was surprised. I'm going to have to lower my expectations. I'm going to say only, if those guys are 0.9, you got a few guys in there doing some good stuff. Jimmy Butler's always kind of good. I'm going to say like 6.
They're averaging over a half. There's 27.
Whoa.
Half or more. 27.
27. That's incredible. I thought it was way, way, way less.
Including Justin Holiday.
Okay, well, I don't know if we should count him. Or I don't know if we should count all the guys on that list, is what I'm saying.
Well, but my point, I guess, in saying that is, right, there's only 27 people averaging half a block. Most leagues, how many guards are started?
3, 4, sometimes. You can get 5 in there depending on what your settings are.
Right, I would say that the average is probably around 4. So even in a 10-team league, that's 40. So you can already see that half a block is pretty special.
Yeah, take what you can get, and if you can get it out of your guards, you might as well. And if Marcus Smart is going to play 4 games this week, we were just kind of talking about how that's going to matter a lot. You got Dame Lillard playing 1 game. You got Cat playing 2 games. You got Devin Booker playing 2 games, but you got Marcus Smart playing 4. And you got another guy on this list who, would you rather have Kevin Knox play 4 games or Dame Lillard play 1 game?
Well, it depends. If I needed assists, I would probably have to go for Damian Lillard, just because, right? If your assists is the category you're worried about.
Yeah, if that's the only one. If you're worried about the rest of it, though, like Kevin Knox has been playing well.
And over the last 20 games, which is basically since December 1st, the dude's playing 34.7 minutes a night and averaging 15.8 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 2.1 3-pointers made per game.
That's pretty good. So
for as much hate as he gets, if you look at his full season stat line, it doesn't look that good. basically over the last 2 months, he's been pretty freaking good.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Like he's worth. I think he's worth rostering if you need those types of statistics.
so you want to talk about how far blocks are down for a second? Because I found this stat pretty crazy too.
Okay, let me hear it.
So, how many forward eligible people, according to Basketball Monster, averaging 1 block a game or more?
Forward eligible, 1 block a game or more.
So there was 0 guards, right?
Yes. Well, I would say there's probably a few. Probably at least like a top. There's like a top 10 for sure. You got Giannis and like Davis and all those guys. Kevin Durant, obviously. You got a handful of forwards who are pretty decent at blocks. I'm gonna say 20. I'm gonna say 20.
There are 15.
15. Man, blocks are really down. I'm surprised by that.
And if you just look at everybody, right? So if you just throw in everyone into the pot, okay. And say how many people in the league are averaging more than a block a game. So the entire NBA.
Okay. Entire NBA, if there were, what you said, 15 averaging over a block that are guards, I would say there's probably at least 15 centers who are averaging more than the block. So I'm going to say 30.
There are 34.
Whew, that was close.
That's it. 34 in the entire NBA averaging a block a game or more.
So, I mean, those blocks then, hey, they're hard to come by. And you got a couple, kind of like, not, I wouldn't say stand out, but like you have some good bigs on this list who do get blocks. Noah Vonleh, back in the, for some reason, playing once again for the New York Knicks and then probably falling off in the next week and then coming back in the next week because Fizz is a terrible, terrible asshole. But Vonleh, he's getting close to a block a game. He's getting a steal a game. And then Bismack Biyombo, who's been averaging decent enough minutes to be rostered or at least streamed, getting lots of good rebounds in just 21 minutes a game and over a block a game.
Yeah, 1.3 blocks, which is huge. Yeah, so you know me, I don't like to put Knicks on the list, but you know Vonleh is producing and he's playing. Fizdale could change that at any moment, but I'd ride Vonleh this week. I'd put him in my lineup. He's been playing very consistent, like 26 minutes. He's getting good rebounds, good steals, good blocks. You're getting you nearly a 3-pointer a game. I'm fine with that too. There's a lot of, that's what I said. I mean, like this list is pretty healthy. You know, even looking down a little further, you got Damari Carroll and Jeremy Lin. Like both guys have been playing pretty well in the month of January, and that's important. You know what I mean? Like riding hot streaks is important. So there's a lot of good guys to add with 4 games this week.
Well, you better all get on it because it is crunch time, like we were saying, here in week 16. And since the schedule is heavy on Saturday, the rest of the week's kind of open for you should probably have a few spots open. So a lot of opportunities to stream this week for teams that don't have a weekly lock. Tyler, are there any teams that you are looking particularly at when looking for back-to-backs or even going into week 17?
So there's a couple interesting teams here, and the Boston Celtics are probably one of the teams with the best schedule this week. In the sense, them and the New York Knicks probably share the honor, but like I mentioned, the Knicks are a little bit hard to they're a little bit hard to fathom because they change that rotation so much. But they all play 4 games on later scheduled days, and they play 3 times at home, which teams mostly get a bump at home as far as production goes. So those are the 2 teams that kind of looking at there. Moving into next week, which is another week where you're going to want to win, right? We're getting a little bit crazy. There's no Sunday, Monday back-to-backs.
Oh, no.
So you don't love that.
No, go on. Then you know what I say? This is every week counts. Go all in this week.
Right, but then you got some Sunday, Tuesday back-to-backs that might be worth picking up. And to mention the Boston Celtics and New York Knicks, both those teams play on Sunday and on Tuesday. So if you're going to make one ad for the week, I'd probably shoot for someone from those 2 teams, be that Marcus Smart, be that Noah Vonleh, be that somebody else playing for one of those 2 teams.
Yeah, I like a lot of these back-to-backs you got here. Jahlil Okafor surprising everybody by playing tons of minutes due to Anthony Davis's injury. Shout out to him for staying relevant, playing some very good minutes. And I like you throwing in there Corey Joseph, who's playing a little bit more because of the Oladipo injury. So both of those guys are kind of catching my interest this week. Very sad about Oladipo. We did talk about that in the previous podcast, but it does look like it's going to give a few extra minutes to I think Thad Young's going to get a little bit more usage, right? But it looks like Darren Collison and Tyreek Evans are both going to be the benefactors here.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see how this team trends, right? Like if they start losing a lot, what happens? If they start, if they can keep their head above water, if Tyreek can stay healthy. We talk about that a lot, right? Tyreek's been known to be hurt, so maybe that could give more run to Corey Joseph too. It also be interesting to see if they make a trade. I mean, they're in the thick of that playoff hunt. So yeah. Can they swing, some assets together and trade for something that's gonna keep them in the hunt? I mean, it'll be. They're one of the teams I'm definitely watching over the next kind of till the trade deadline on the February 7th.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on them. Are there any other teams that you're like, maybe we need to make sure that team stays on my Twitter account for the next week?
So if we're just talking about trade deadline stuff, there's actually quite a few teams I'm keeping my eye on. As far as selling teams, the list is pretty straightforward, and most people know the names, right? You got the New York situation, right? They're not competing. They've got a so I wouldn't be surprised if they made some moves, right?
Yeah.
Chicago's going to sell off anything they can sell off.
Yeah, there's fire sale in Chicago, right? Orlando might be in the market to get rid of one of their overloaded group of bigs.
And they need a damn point guard. They're going to have to get a point guard at some point. So, and the draft only really has 2 point guards. Now they're going to be picking pretty high, so maybe they go for one of them. But I could see them trading for a point guard. I could see them trading for someone like Dennis Smith Jr. The Wizards are still a team to watch, right? They made a push now, but I could see them trying to get rid of Otto Porter. I mean, I don't know why they'd trade Bradley Beal. I mean, that's the best asset they have, but I mean, they're not the smartest team in the world, so that might happen. And then, looking at the West, I think Memphis is probably going to sell off. Now, whether they can find someone to take Gasol and Conley, I don't know, but they could sell off some of those other veterans that they have. So they're kind of an interesting team to watch. It'll be interesting to see what the Pelicans do. The Mavericks, right? The Timberwolves, like some of these teams, because there's so many teams competing, some of these teams could decide to go the other way and try to improve their draft pick. And the lottery is a lot more spread out this year in the sense that the teams with the better records have a higher chance of getting the number 1 pick. So that alone could be a little bit of incentive for them to, tank and basically be in the lottery and try to get a higher draft pick. So that whole Western Conference jumble there, it'll be interesting to see what some of those teams decide to do. The Mavericks are probably going to try to make a move too. I mean, they've got the expiring contracts of Wes Matthews, DeAndre Jordan. They've got Dwight Powell, who they probably like to trade, making $8 million next year. And then there's the whole Dennis Smith Jr. thing. So there could be a lot of action, or there could not be any. So it'll be really interesting to watch.
The fact that we're sitting here thinking that there's going to be a ton of action, knowing how this usually goes down, we're sitting here thinking there's going to be a ton of action. We're predicting a very, very busy trade deadline, and we'll see Cristiano Felicio get bought out, and then for some reason the Bulls give away a 2nd-round draft pick to another team for no reason. That's going to be the end of it. It won't be that busy at all.
Well,
that's how it usually goes.
Well, and I will say this too, that limits moves is the whole cap space thing, right? Nobody really is under the cap. So it makes every team's got to match up salaries. So trading for someone like DeAndre Jordan making $20 million means you have to give up someone making $20 million. Well, you know what I mean? Like the guy making $20 million probably is a pretty decent player. So, maybe
I know a guy who can make $20 million who's not that decent of a player.
and those are usually on bad teams. So it makes it harder for these trades to go down when no one has cap space because they're just limited in the moves they can make. Now that's not to say that there won't be moves, and I still think there will be moves, but I guess what I'm trying to say is it'll be an interesting week and a half.
I'm hoping for a very interesting trade deadline moving into that. That's what you want. You want to mix it all up. You want to give some people a chance. So stay tuned to Watching the Boxes. Stay tuned to our Twitter accounts as well. You
can we say this once real quick before we leave?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think you're requesting a trade like a headline. How's that big news?
It's not. Everyone's requesting a trade.
But I was just I was scrolling through the feeds here. And that was all over. Was that yesterday on Saturday? Was that on Friday? And I'm like, how is this top news? He's Thon Maker, man. Has he even played more than 20 minutes a game at any point?
Yeah, are people mixing him up with Pascal Siakam? Even then, I'm sure people out there are I don't know who either one of those dudes are. I'm trying to go to the Super Bowl party. That the Thon Maker requesting a trade is very strange.
Well, and okay, you're 21 years old, and I get it, you want to play, but I don't understand how it's news. Just do something, man. Prove something.
Get into a game for once. How about that? Hey, shoot your shot, Thon Maker. Whatever. I guess you got either a good agent or a really bad agent. We'll find out, I guess, pretty soon whether he is a good or a bad agent.
And I'll say this about those types of players. They get pigeonholed by their situation, right? Because the team that picked them so high doesn't want to give up on them.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck due to circumstances. So we can't trade this guy away from nothing. He was the top high.
And that's what I mean. And then the other teams want to get him for nothing because they're well, you're not playing him, so he can't be that good.
Yeah, it's just an old-fashioned no one's going to move standoff.
Yeah, right? Catch-22 right there, as they say.
Poor Thon Maker. I guess I don't feel too bad for Thon Maker. He's making quite a bit of money. Good for him. Hey, good for Thon Maker. But yeah, if you are wanting to stay informed, you should be on Twitter. And if you are on Twitter, you should be following us. You can follow me at Watch the Boxes. You can follow Tyler at Tyler P. Watts. Do that now. Do that soon. Get on Twitter and just type that in right now. It really, if you want to leave feedback for the show, let us know. If you like the show, rate, review us on whatever you're listening to us on, or go to patreon.com/watchingtheboxes and subscribe. And you will get early access to certain podcasts. And during this trade season, you will get early access to our thoughts as well. So stay tuned for that. That is patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. And that is it for us tonight. Have a good one, everybody.